Hello, live viewers. You are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be presenting to you the detailed analysis of the novel The Beggars Strike by Aminata Sow. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. Let us begin today's lesson with a synopsis of the novel. The story is set in Dakar, the capital city of Islam-influenced Senegal. In the narrative, we learn that the government wants to clear the city streets of beggars who were defined as running sores, and whose presence is considered harmful to the European and American tourists who should not see the filth and dirt in the society as presented by the beggars. The protagonist, Mour Ndiaye, is a director of public health and hygiene. He is a man who is obsessed with his ambition of becoming the vice president of the republic. In order to claim the appointment, Mour Ndiaye needed to put up an outstanding performance in his present duty. And the most present need in that line of duty is to get rid of the beggars from all the streets in the city to pave way for tourism. If Mour Ndiaye becomes vice president, he believes that, as a symbol of high status, he must have a young and educated wife by his side. Therefore, without regard for the feeling of his first, loyal but illiterate wife, Lolli, he marries a vibrant and sophisticated office girl, Sine. After the streets have been cleared of the beggars, and in order to enhance his chances of becoming the vice president of the republic, Mour Ndiaye is asked by his Marabout, Hifi Buko, to slaughter a cow and distribute arms to the beggars in all the corners of the city. But because the streets have been cleared of the beggars, Mour Ndiaye cannot offer the prescribed sacrifice, and consequently, he is not made vice president of the republic. Let's now move to the title of the story, The Beggars Strike. Once you hear the title of the story, what comes to your mind? At first glance, the title captures the central storyline of the novel, which revolves around a coalition of beggars who decide to halt their traditional practice of soliciting alms. This bold act of collective protest serves as a catalyst for significant upheaval within the society, disrupting its usual flow and challenging the status quo. By refusing to participate in a cycle of begging, their presence becomes a powerful statement that compels both the elite class and the government to face the stark inequalities that have long been overlooked. The novel delves into the implication of this strike, exploring how it not only affects the lives of the beggars themselves, but also prompts a broader dialogue about poverty, dignity, and the responsibility of those in power. The implication of this strike is that alms givers and donors have to travel long distance to beg the beggars to accept their donations. Through this narrative, the author, Aminata Sow, highlights the urgent need for societal change and the importance of addressing the injustices that persist in the fabric of the urban life. The beggars referenced in the title of the novel, The Beggars Strike, serves as more than just a representation of a particular social class. They embody a broader metaphor for all the marginalized groups within the society, those who endure oppression, face neglect, or are regarded as expendable. In this light, the beggar strike transcends its immediate context, symbolizing the universal struggle of any group resisting dehumanization and confronting systemic injustice. This powerful act of protest underscores a crucial message. No group, regardless of how powerless they may appear, is devoid of agency or the capacity to challenge the existing social order. The title invites the readers to recognize the resilience and strength that can emerge from collective action, emphasizing that even the most disenfranchised individuals possess the potential to inspire change and advocate for their rights. By positioning the beggars as representatives of a wider spectrum of societal struggle, the narrative calls for a deeper examination of social hierarchies and the importance of solidarity in the fight for equality and justice. The title of the novel, The Beggar Strike, serves as a powerful symbol of strength that emerges from the unity of marginalized individuals when they emerge in a collective action. Typically, beggars are perceived as powerless, voiceless, and invisible members of the society, often overlooked and dismissed by those in position of privilege. However, by opting to go on strike, These beggars actively challenge their prevailing narrative and illustrate that even the most vulnerable can harness collective strength when they stand together. They go against the status quo that a beggar has no choice. The act of striking represents not just a refusal to beg, but a significant form of resistance, a bold assertion of their rights, and a reclamation of their dignity. Through this organized protest, the beggars send a clear message. They are not merely passive victims of their circumstances, but rather individuals capable of agency and change. This pivotal moment in the narrative emphasizes the transformative power of solidarity and highlights the potential for marginalized groups to demand recognition and respect, ultimately reshaping the discourse around social justice and human rights. The title carries a significant element of irony. Traditionally, beggars are seen as inherently dependent on the charity and goodwill of others, expected to accept their circumstance passively, with little control over their own lives. That is to say, the beggar has no choice. However, the decision to go on strike, that is, to actively refuse to beg for money, subverts this expectation entirely. It is particularly ironic that those typically regarded as helpless or invincible possess the ability to disrupt societal system that marginalizes them. This unexpected act of defiance sheds light on the inherent power that exists even among the most disadvantaged individuals. The beggar strike not only challenges the prevailing perception of poverty, but also exposes the flaws in how society views the poor. By compelling the readers to confront these assumptions, the narrative encourages the examination of issues related to power dynamics, personal agency, and the ethical responsibility of individuals and institutions towards those who are marginalized. This shift in perspective invites a more compassionate and informed dialogue about social justice and the complex realities faced by those living in the fringes of society. Let's now talk about the narrative techniques employed by Aminata Sow in the novel The Beggar Strike. The narrative unfolds through a masterful third-person omniscient perspective, granting the narrator unparalleled access into the innermost thoughts, emotions, and motivations of a diverse cast of characters. This literary technique expertly weaves together an intricate tapestry of both the beggars and the bureaucrats, laying bare their complex psychological landscape. By inhabiting the minds of these characters, readers gain a profound understanding of the driving force behind their actions. The beggars' struggle to survive, their desperation, and resilience are juxtaposed with the bureaucrats' machinations, revealing the intricate web of corruption, apathy, and societal indifference that perpetuates inequality. Through this Now's narrative approach, the author, Aminata Sow, sheds light on the multifaceted human experience, illuminating the gray areas between right and wrong, and challenging readers to confront the harsh realities of a system that often prioritizes power over people. Let's now consider the setting of the novel. In the thought-provoking novel, The Beggar Strike by Aminata Sow masterfully weaves a tale of resistance and resilience. Set against the vibrant backdrop of a West African community, the narrative unfolds as government bureaucrats, driven by a desire to project a polished image for Western tourists, launched a campaign to eradicate begging from the city streets. With calculated ruthlessness, the authorities employ a battery of repressive tactics, subjecting the beggars to harassment, physical abuse, and imprisonment. Yet, in the face of such unyielding oppression, the beggars refuse to be silenced. With a deep sense of solidarity and determination, they organize a strike, withdrawing their presence from the city streets and withholding their customary appeal for arms. As the strike takes hold, the community is thrown into chaos. The intricate web of social relationships, which had long been entwined with the presence of beggars, begins to fray. The novel reveals, with striking clarity, the vital role that beggars play in the social fabric of West African society, challenging the Western notion that begging is a marginal or dysfunctional phenomenon. From Aminata Sow's masterful storytelling, the beggars emerge as complex, multidimensional characters imbued with a deep sense of dignity and agency. As the strike reaches its climax, The reader is left with a profound appreciation of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of the community. Aminata Sow's poignant novel, The Beggar Strike, transports readers to the vibrant streets of a nameless West African capital where the complexities of post-colonial society unfold. Against the backdrop of a city struggling to redefine itself, Aminata Sow masterfully weaves a tale of resilience and social commentary. The presence of the beggars sparked concern among city bureaucrats who viewed them as an eyesore detrimental to the city's image and tourism. This set the stage for a powerful fictional strike where the beggars, tired of being marginalized and ignored, unite to challenge the societal attitude toward poverty and the underprivileged. While the city remains unnamed, the spirit of Dakar, Senegal's vibrant capital, permeates the pages, capturing the essence of the urban life and the struggles of the underprivileged in a rapidly modernizing society. Through Aminata Sow's vivid storytelling, the beggars emerge as a symbol of resilience, dignity, and the unyielding human spirit, forcing readers to confront the harsh realities of poverty and social inequality. Let's now take a chapter by chapter analysis of the story. In the novel, The Beggars Strike, Mour Ndiaye, the ambitious director of public health service, is determined to become the vice president of the republic. To achieve this goal, he must demonstrate exceptional performance of his current role, which everyone knows he has failed woefully at. His assistant is the one holding everything together for him, but he takes the credit for the work done. His assistant is the brain of his department and the one actually managing the affairs of that particular department. Obsessed with his ambition of becoming the vice president of the republic, he has to do anything within his power to please the president, who has the reputation of being difficult to please. He has been charged with the duty of removing all the beggars from the streets of the city. He fails at nothing to get them out of the street, for he considers their presence as harmful to public health as well as the prestige of Senegal. The present task at hand is to eradicate all the beggars from the streets of Dakar, the capital city of Senegal, in order to gain favor of the president, which will place him foremost in the selection process. The presence of these beggars, which is perceived as a threat to the country's prestige, public health, and national economy, must be eradicated. They are viewed as running sores that should be hidden from view, particularly the capital city. Mour Ndiaye and his superiors believe that the beggars deter tourists, thereby harming the country's reputation and economy. To accomplish his task, Mour Ndiaye relies on his assistant, Keba Dabo, who shares his disdain for begging and beggars. Keba Dabo's upbringing in an impoverished family where his mother refused to resort to begging has instilled in him a strong sense of self-resilience and honesty. He is driven by a desire to eliminate begging and restore dignity to those who have been reduced to it. Through the characters of Mour Ndiaye and Keba Dabo, the novel explores themes of ambition, power, and social inequality, raising important questions about the treatment of the marginalized communities and the impact of social exploitation on individual lives. Keba Dabo's relentless pursuit of the beggars in Dakar, Senegal, is a pivotal aspect of Aminata Sow's novel, The Beggar Strike. Keba Dabo, driven by his disdain for beggars, wages a series of battles against them, only to see them return each day. His determination to eradicate them leads him to instruct a squad to track them down, emphasizing the severity of the issue. The government's stance on the issue was clear. They are viewed as a nuisance, a plague that must be eliminated. Persistent offenders will be given a good lesson and put on a track to Mbada, thus 200 miles away, where there's practically no means of transport. So how will they manage to get back here? If they come back, we'll put them in prison. Yes, indeed, they will land up in prison. On the contrary, Keba Dabo's secretary, Sagadiov, an extremely nice-looking girl, with whom he is on rather familiar terms, has told him not to get so worked up simply because there are some beggars about. She's sick of hearing him talking about them all the time. These folks who poison the air with their smell. This has become his sole subject of conversation, and all these letters she has to type, all her fingers are quite numb, And all these memos sent off to arrange meetings, all these messages to everyone, all because of a few beggars? It is quite beyond all reason. She believes that religion teaches us we must help the poor. How could they live otherwise? Which Keba Dabo debunks with, religion prescribes help for the poor, but he doesn't tell the poor to cause continual disturbance to their neighbors. Mour Ndiaye, Keba's superior, is thrilled when they finally succeed in removing beggars from the street. This achievement earns Mour Ndiaye recognition from the ever difficult to please president, who congratulates him on the job well done. Mour Ndiaye goes beyond the physical to the spiritual realms in order to achieve his ambition. However, in a twist of fate, Mour Ndiaye's ambition for the vice presidency is tied to the very people he has persecuted. Sine Birama, a powerful Marabout, advises Mour Ndiaye that to achieve his goal, he must sacrifice a fine white ram and distribute its meat among the beggars. This ironic turn of events highlights a complex relationship between power, poverty, and spirituality in West African society. During his visit to the Marabout, his true intentions were revealed. I would like the president to think of me, Sine Birama. I do not have any secrets with you. A few months ago, the president said he was going to select a vice president, and now the rumor goes that he will soon put this into effect. I would like you to pray for the president to think of me. You shall have your wish, if it so pleases God. All you have to do is to sacrifice a fine white ram. You will slaughter it with your own hands. You will divide the meat into 7 parts and distribute this to beggars. As the beggars are forcibly relocated to the slum clearance settlement area, tension simmers beneath the surface. The brutal treatment they endured during the relocation has left many wounded, and some, like the elderly Gogi Diop, have succumbed to their injuries. Some were beaten, others were driven like dogs, some had their batu broken, some had their walking sticks broken, and others, they were beaten till their clothing were tattered. Anger and resentment boiled over, fueled by the sense of dehumanization and degradation. Nguirane, a blind beggar and skilled guitarist, becomes a vocal leader among the group. His impassioned words ignite a spark of defiance. We are not dogs. We are human beings, deserving of dignity and respect. It's time we organize and take a stand. As the beggars begin to mobilize, they engage in introspective discussions about the true nature of charity and the motivation behind it. Nguirane's philosophical musing sheds light on the complex dynamics at play. People don't give us alms out of kindness. They do it to secure our blessings and prayers. They need us to pray for their prosperity, their longevity, and their peace of mind. And indeed, people who give charity have ulterior motives and not because they care about the beggars. This epiphany galvanizes the beggars, and after much debate, they reach a unanimous decision. They will never leave the resettlement area, refusing to be driven out or silenced. The beggars were guided by a woman called Salla, who served like a mother figure to all of them. They have confidence in Salla. They know she's a woman of experience. She had had plenty of opportunity of getting to know the world. Being often quite young, she had had to learn to make her own way in life very early. Her former job as a maid of all work gave her the chance to know people, to learn their intimate secret, and to judge the idiosyncrasy of the rich as well as the poor. For she has swept sumptuous villas with their soft mattresses as well as sordid hovels, in which at nightfall there were quarrels over a torn pallet whose straw swarmed with bedbugs. The school of life is probably the best school. You see everything, you get hardened to everything. That is to say, Sal is an experienced woman through and through. So, she is well vested in knowledge and will be a good guide for the beggars. After Mour Ndiaye's last visit to Sine Birama, Lolli, his wife, had gone back to Kergalo to find out how things were going on spiritually. Inshallah, the post of vice president, he will obtain it. He must sacrifice a bull. He must divide it into 33 portions, which he must distribute among the poor on a Friday. None of the occupants of his own house must taste the meat. Inshallah, all will go well. Lolli was later informed about the campaign for women liberation that his sisters were waging. Her eldest daughter, Rabi, who was a law student, was always saying, polygamy must be done away with. There's no justification for the practice nowadays. All these things began to make sense to her when her husband, Mour Ndiaye, woke her up in the middle of the night to inform her that he will be getting married the next morning. For the first time in her married life, she spoke to her husband with so much disrespect. You bastard! You liar! You want me to shut up, do you? 24 years of marriage, you were nothing, nothing but a miserable beggar, and I backed you up. I put up with everything patiently. I worked my fingers to the bone, and now you want to share everything you have got with another woman. Thanks to my patience and my work and everything that you have got when you married me, and that you have got since with my assistance. Readers of the novel are shocked to find out that Mour Ndiaye is getting married to a little 17-year-old girl who works as a secretary in a travel agency. Mour Ndiaye had met her at a hotel in a neighboring country, which he had visited with his minister to see what had been accomplished there to develop their tourist site and clear the cities of their human pollution problem. He had been attracted by her spontaneity, her youth, and especially by the ease with which she expressed herself in the official language, with which Mour Ndiaye himself still has some difficulties. In order to see her without arousing Lolli's suspicion, Mour Ndiaye had invented late meetings with VIPs from Europe who were studying the tourism situation, or 2 days business trip to a neighboring country, or lunches with technical advisors. Then one day, Sine, who had had plenty of time to appreciate her friend's generosity and his love for her, asked him to marry her. This marriage sparked a debate among family and friends as to the next step Lolli should take, while others, including her own daughter, wanted her to leave her marriage. Her mother and father were against that decision. Lolli's mother arrived, old Sanu Cisse, with her reputation for virtues and honesty. When a woman has got 8 children, some of them old enough to be married, she can't allow herself to behave like a child. Mour Ndiaye is your husband. He is free. He doesn't belong to you. What most feminists find troubling is the ownership mentality imposed on women by their husbands as opposed to the free-spirited nature of their husbands. The Beggars, on the other hand, heard on radio an announcement from the hospital superintendent requesting the nurse of king of Goke Diop, deceased, aged about 52, native of Sandiara, to come and collect his body. No one had any idea in what circumstances he had been taken to the hospital or what he had died of. He tried to escape the police when he was knocked down by a moving vehicle. Without proper health care, he died in the hospital, and the Beggars mobilized and performed his funeral. Mour Ndiaye again goes to ask counsel of one of his many marabouts after getting a nightmare who instructs him to make an offering of 7 white kola nuts to an old woman who has no physical infirmity. He has found this task simple and with enthusiasm gets the things ready for the offering. How great is his disappointment, his distress, his fear also, when his son brings back the kola nuts, explaining that he hasn't seen a single beggar. Mour Ndiaye is vexed, but to tell the truth, he is afraid that this is an unlucky omen. Will this terrible nightmare, which has so upset him, and which must be exorcised by giving away the kolas, come true because the kolas have come back? He falls into a terrible rage. He calls one of his servants, Sally. Here is 1,000 francs for you. Try to find an old woman who is not lame, who is not blind, not even in one eye, and give her these kolas. Don't bring them back under any circumstance, Sally. This donation must be made today, urgently. Sally explores the whole district without meeting a single beggar. In any case, it is common knowledge this district has never suffered from the continuous assault of beggars. The only establishment that risks being frequented is the baker's shop, And the baker some time ago, long before the mopping up campaign, had taken care to clear his shop of these undesirable canvases of all sorts, beggars, hawkers, shoeshine boys, and others. I've got my washing up to do, and the laundry is getting late. What must I do with these coolers? Sally gives way to a temptation simply to throw them away, to get rid of them. She places them at the foot of a tree and goes away. Then, feeling a pang of remorse, just as she was slipping the 1,000 franc note, folded in four, into her braziers, she turns round quickly, picks up the kola nuts, wrapped in pieces of white paper, stands for a moment with them poised in her hand, not knowing what she must decide to do. Fortunately, she catches sight of a bus. She was later informed that the beggars have moved to a different location. She journeyed to the current settlement of the beggars to make the offerings to them. She realizes that the shortage of beggars is causing a considerable inconvenience to the part of the population. She sees the sick suffering this distance in order to make the sacrifices, which perhaps helps them to be restored to physical or mental well-being. She sees luxurious cars with all their windows tightly shut, speeding down the sandy track that leads to the beggar's house. She hears the laments of people of modest means who condemn the ever increasing demands of the beggars. They really go too far. They don't care a damn for what the Holy Scriptures lay down. Can you imagine their cheek? The amount prescribed for a donation is 7 lumps of sugar and a candle. And here are these ladies and gentlemen demanding to be offered anything up to 2 pounds of sugar or a really thick blanket that's not been patched. As the beggars stand firm in their refusal to leave the settlement area, a surprising turn of events unfolds. People begin to flock into the settlement, bearing gifts and offerings to the beggars. But in a role reversal, the beggars now dictate the terms, specifying what they will and will not accept. The givers, eager to curry favor, have no choice but to comply. Nguirane's assertion that beggars have a choice is proven true as they exert their newfound power. Meanwhile, Mour Ndiaye's quest for the vice presidency continues, leading him to seek out an enigmatic Kifi Bukul, a Marabout rumored to possess extraordinary spiritual powers. After a week long of consultation, Kifi Bukul delivers his verdict. Mour will attain his desired position, but only if he completes a specific task. The Marabout's instructions are precise. Mour Ndiaye must slaughter a bull, divide it into 77 portions, and distribute them to beggars across the town. Not just any beggars, but battle bearers. What are battle bearers? Mour Ndiaye asked. They are beggars who walk about the street to beg. This offering must go to its correct destination, otherwise everything risks going wrong. It must go to the genuine pauper, people who have nothing, absolutely nothing, and will have starved were it not for the battle that they stretch out. But this sacrifice that you will make must not be limited to one district of the town only. You are destined to be appreciated in the four corners of the town, in the four corners of the country. You will be a man of fame. This fame must be symbolized by the manner in which you distribute the meat from the sacrifice. Additionally, he must offer 3 times 7 yards of white non-silky material, as well as 700 kola nuts, carefully divided into 300 reds and 400 whites. If Mour Ndiaye completes this task, Kifi Kubol assures him he will be appointed vice president within a week. The fate of Mour Ndiaye's ambition hangs in the balance as he ponders on the Marabout's demands. The whole night following the departure of the mysterious Kifi Bukul, Mour Ndiaye has not slept a wink. Nothing was easier for him than to buy a bull with a coat of one even color, 3 times 7 yards of a non-silky material, and 700 coolers. But how is he to be able to distribute them around the city when there aren't any beggars about anymore? You must make your offerings exactly as indicated. He remembers the words of the Marabout. Kifi Bukul's verdict proved that The balance of power has been reversed. He firmly believes in the words of this man who is not human, and he is convinced that from this moment his whole fate is in the vantage points of these beggars. Mour Ndiaye springs into action, determined to fulfill Kefiboukoul's instruction and secure his vice presidency position. However, he soon realizes that his previous effort to purge the streets of beggars has backfired. The beggars are nowhere to be found, and Mour Ndiaye is left scrambling to find a solution. First, he tries to enlist Keba Dabo's help, asking him to persuade the beggars to return to the street. However, Keba Dabo is appalled by the idea and refuses to get involved. Yes, yes, but Kiba, I must tell you, I need these beggars today. I need them so much. I've got to distribute a sacrifice among them. I need them to go back to their vantage points for one day. For one day only. It won't even be for a day. Only for a few hours. Yes, a very personal reason. I would like you to go and see them with a few members of the former clearance squad to give them confidence and persuade them to come back to the street for a few hours. Tell them they risk nothing, absolutely nothing. Finally, Keba Dabo raised his head and, prompted by some violent emotion, stared at his chief and cried passionately, "No! Who do you take me for? It's madness what you're saying. I've hunted these beggars. I've destroyed them physically and morally. And finally, they leave us in peace. And now, you want me to go and tell them to come back?" With this, Mour Ndiaye regrets making Keba Dabo his assistant. Undeterred, Mour Ndiaye decides to visit the resettlement himself, begging the beggars to return to the street, even if only for a few hours. The beggars, however, are unmoved by Mour Ndiaye's plea, asking if he can be serious about expecting them to return to the street. Salla, the leader of the beggars, delivers a long sarcastic oration, pretending to agree to Mour Ndiaye's request. She promises that the beggars will return to their old post the next day, but it's clear that she has no intention of keeping her words. "You must take up your stance in every part of the city, just as you used to do before, in front of the market, at the entrance of the hospital, at the traffic lights, in front of offices, clinics, banks, shops, throughout the city, every part of the city. You receive offerings from me, offerings that will make it worth your while. Having taken the trouble to travel from here, and besides, you have been huddled together here for such a long time, as if you were scarcely human. And for once in a while, get out and about, and at least to stretch your legs a bit. Besides, says Nguirane sir, who are you to talk to us like this and guarantee our safety? I am the director of the Public Health Service. I am in charge of the people who might cause you any trouble." After revealing his identity, Salla decides to play tricks on his mind. She agrees that they will avail themselves to receive the offerings the next morning. Mour Ndiaye, however, is oblivious of the beggar's deception. He rushes home, slaughters the bull, and carefully packages the meat according to Kefiboukoul's instruction. He loads the meat and other offerings into the van and sets off to distribute them to the beggars. But when he arrives at the usual begging spot, he's met with empty streets. The beggars are nowhere to be found, and Mour Ndiaye realizes that he has been tricked by none other than the beggars. His anger and frustration boils over as he realizes that Salla and other beggars have outsmarted him. Main markets, hospitals, mosques, the main squares, in front of the big shops, and even the most obscure corners of the city. Not a sign of a beggar, not a sign of a batu. Mour Ndiaye's desperation grows as he returns to the resettlement, attempting to bribe the beggars with wads of banknotes to return to the streets. However, the beggars, led by the cunning Salla, are resolute in their strike, and Mour Ndiaye's plan backfires. Despite their initial promise to return, the beggars remain in the resettlement, leaving Mour Ndiaye's ambition in tatters. "Sister, I came to see what had held the lads up. They promised to be back to their old spots in the city. After a few moments, Salla and Yang looked up at Mour Ndiaye. What held them up? I don't know. Ask them yourself. They aren't children, and I'm not their mother. Mour Ndiaye is astonished at Salla's aggressive tone. He makes an effort not to show his feeling. In a conciliatory voice, a smile on his lips, he says to Salla, "What you say is true, but if I thought it wise to confer with you, it is because you are the one I spoke with yesterday. This morning, I didn't see them. I realized I had not given them money for bus fare. It was an omission on my part. It was completely my fault." Mour Ndiaye now tries to bribe the beggars. Mour dips his hand into the pockets of his boo-boo, bringing out rolls of banknotes, which he held towards the beggars. The majority of the crowd immediately jumps up to seize the notes as they flutter in the wind. They jostle each other shouting, "Money is flying about! Money is flying about!" Mour Ndiaye says, "That's for your bus fares, so you can go into town and take out the places in the street, can't you?" "Yes, yes, we'll come. This afternoon." Yet they did not come. As raining banknotes, Mour Ndiaye is pleased to see Salla in the midst of the scrum. That's a good sign, he thinks, to placate her and make her better disposed to him. Mour Ndiaye deliberately throws a whole word in her direction so that she can easily catch a good share. She has lost her headscarf in the scuffle. Mour Ndiaye interprets her broad smile as an undoubted victory for him. He is jubilant. It is only now he thinks that he has managed to break down the wall that separated him from the beggars. After he left, the beggars had a heated argument, a debate as to whether to sympathize with Mour Ndiaye and go back to their post, or remain unsympathetic to his pleas. On Salla and Yang's instructions, the beggars are continuing their strike. As the day draws to a close, Mour Ndiaye begins to learn from his mistake and now sees the beggars as people who deserve dignity. Mour Ndiaye thinks of the beggars now without any ill feeling. All in all, they don't deserve our scorn. In any case, we only despise them when we don't need them. We shall have to find some way of letting them get back their rights as citizens, create some organization to which they can be assimilated, carry out a vast campaign of rehabilitation on their behalf. They need to be educated, as do a large part of the population. No, they aren't the only ones who are left out. Mour Ndiaye asks his driver to drive him to a second wife. Mour Ndiaye found Sine in the dining room, sitting at the table, waiting for a coffee, a cigarette in her mouth. He got furious at her and shouted at Sine, and the reprimand he gave Sine was the expression of his own bitterness and resentment. "Sine, I've told you I don't like to see you smoking. I have formally forbidden you to smoke, and I thought that had been understood." She stares at Mour Ndiaye insolently and shouts back, "If you think I'm prepared to be stuck here like a piece of furniture and receive your orders and your prohibitions, then you're making a mistake. I'm a person and not a block of wood." In what seems like a juxtaposition between Lolli and Sine, readers are somewhat shocked with Sine's utterances but can't extend any sympathy to Mour Ndiaye. "What are you thinking about? That I'm just here to satisfy your whims? No, I'm your wife, so treat me like a wife." "Really? Mour, if you think I'm going to let you treat me like a common or a garden object, then you've got another thing coming." Mesue disappears for days on end, and when he reappears, is to start giving me orders. "Oh no, Mour, you can do that to your Lolli, but I'm no sheep." Mour replies by saying, Lolli is a very worthy, respectable woman. He later comes to the understanding that their generational difference or generational differences is the cause of their disagreement. Mour Ndiaye instructs his driver, Koli, to take the meat to the beggars after taking lunch, believing that after bribing them, the beggars will now come to stand at their vantage points. He asks Koli to begin at the main market, then go the round of the 3 hospitals of the city, then visit each one of the countless mosques. They go to every one of the squares and all the beggars' vantage points, but the beggars have not turned up as agreed. On Salla Nyang's instructions, the beggars are continuing their strike. That is, the beggars' strike. With a last energy, Salla Nyang harangued them. What? It's out of the question. It's completely out of the question. Just because he threw his money at us, we have to give in to his whims? No. If he threw his money about, it's because he's got his pocket full. It's because he can afford to throw it about by the handful. What we had managed to pick up is just our good luck. If you go out to the street, you seem like a miserable weekend creature with no dignity. We can't be relied on. Most driver keeps on driving about in the van, wondering from time to time if Mour Ndiaye realizes that they have driven round the city more than 10 times. The main markets, hospitals, mosques, the market squares, in front of the big shops, and even the most obscure corners of the city. Not a sign of a beggar, not a sign of a battle. The sun starts to set in, sets lower and lower. It is the first hour of twilight. Collie, go back to their house. We must go and give them the meat. I beg your pardon, sir. I said, you must drive to the beggar's house. We can't keep this meat all night in this heat. We must go and give it to them. Mour Ndiaye is dog-tired, physically and mentally, to be made a fool by the beggars. What an irony of fate. He goes back to Sine and is provided dinner, but he couldn't eat. He opted for milk instead. He sees Sine sit down at the table. Sine has not spoken a word to him. She doesn't know if he had forgotten about their quarrel at midday. He even tries to concentrate all his attention till Sine had finished her dinner to see if she is going to smoke again. He must have fallen asleep again, as he only awakens when the signature tune announcing the television news catches his ear. He opens his eyes and sees Sine sit down on the couch after switching on the television. He remembers that he has to look and see if she had been smoking. But just as he turns his eye towards Sine, the newsreader's voice announces in a solemn tone that gives him the impression that he is speaking face to face with God. Whereas the Constitution, whereas the decree of the 6th June, bearing on the revision of the Constitution, etc., the President of the Republic decrees that, firstly, Monsieur Toumani Sane's function as the Home Secretary shall be terminated. Secondly, Monsieur Toumani Sane is hereby appointed Vice President of the Republic, and that is to say, Mour Ndiaye's inability to offer arms to the beggars leads to the position of the Vice Presidency eluding him. The position was rather given to somebody else. Let's now move to the major themes in the novel. There are so many things that have been discussed in this particular novel, the beggar strike, but what can be considered as a major theme in this work is the important role all human beings, regardless of their social or economic status, play in the political, social, economic, spiritual, and biological life of one another. A more philosophical way to put it is the interconnectedness of all things, or the socio-economic and spiritual ecology of all things. It simply means that all things, especially human beings, whether rich or poor, are essential for the success and survival of one another. This is the central message of The Beggar Strike by Aminata Sow. Let's now discuss the themes one by one, starting with the theme of begging. The story centers around a group of beggars in the city who, fed up with their treatment by the upper classes and the government, decide to go on strike. They stop begging, a form of protest against the social injustices they face. The beggars, who typically rely on the generosity of passers-by, now refuse to ask for alms, demanding recognition and respect. They want to be treated with dignity and acknowledged as human beings, rather than as invincible, helpless figures of society. Aminata Sow is not in any way encouraging begging. All she uses her novel to top reach is a respect for human dignity. People don't go out to beg for the love of begging or merely because of laziness. Through this fictional strike, Aminata Sow critiques the social and political systems that perpetuate poverty and marginalization. The beggars, who are often seen as a nuisance or even invincible, become the central figures of power in the city for the first time. Their protest forces society to face uncomfortable truths about inequality, human dignity, and the responsibilities of the privileged. Aminata Sow uses the beggar strike as a metaphor for the marginalized voices in the society. Aminata Sow uses her novel, The Beggar Strike, as a metaphor for the marginalized voices in the society. In many ways, the beggars represent the most powerless and invisible members of the society. That is to say, those who live in poverty and are often ignored or despised by the wealthy and powerful people. By organizing a strike, the beggars challenge the status quo and demand recognition, forcing the society that has always ignored them to confront its own indifference. The central idea of the beggars' protest is their demand for dignity, which highlights a universal human right. The strike challenges the notion that people in poverty deserve to be treated with disdain, or that they should simply accept their fate without a voice. That is to say, the beggar has no choice. This reflects Aminata Sow's critique of how society often fails to address the root cause of poverty instead of choosing to view the poor as mere objects of pity and inconvenience. The theme of polygamy. One of the major themes in Aminata Sow's The Beggar Strike is the theme of polygamy. The writer uses the character of Mour Ndiaye to demonstrate how polygamy has outlived its importance in the African context. That is to say, the author does not see anything good in polygamy. She uses the character of Lolli and Sine to demonstrate that, in most cases, polygamy is more or less a betrayal to the first marriage. Next is the power of one, or the strength in unity. The beggar strike shows the unity and the strength that comes from collective action. By uniting for a common cause, the beggars are able to disrupt the daily function of the city and therefore force the city authorities to take their demands seriously. The novel emphasizes that when marginalized groups work together, they can challenge the power structures that oppress them. The strike is a reminder that unity is power. That is, by organizing the strike, the beggars are able to stand up to the social, political, and economic forces that have kept them in the position of subjugation. The theme reflects the broader idea that social change often requires collective efforts and solidarity, and that the marginalized have a significant impact when they act together. The theme of resilience, resistance, and empowerment. The beggar strike is an act of resistance against the oppressive systems that keep them in poverty. It represents a collective effort by the marginalized to demand change and challenge the established social order. Through their protests, the beggars reclaim a sense of power that has been stripped away from them by the society. The strike becomes an act of empowerment, showing that even the most powerless can find strength through solidarity and collective action. The theme of resistance is not just about fighting against external forces, but also about asserting one's right to exist with dignity and respect. The novel, The Beggar Strike, emphasizes that social change is possible when marginalized groups come together to demand for justice. Next is the theme of inordinate political ambition, or inordinate taste for power. The novelist uses the character of Mour Ndiaye to demonstrate the inordinate political ambition that some African leaders have, or their inordinate taste for political power. That is to say, they are willing to go to any length in order to gain political power, or in order to satisfy their political ambition. Human dignity and respect. Another key theme in the novel The Beggar Strike is the importance of human dignity and empathy. The beggar strike is not just about gaining material wealth or resources, it's about being treated with respect and humanity. They want to be seen as equals, not as invincible figures living in the margins of society. This demand for dignity resonates deeply because it speaks to a fundamental human need, the need to be acknowledged, valued, and treated with respect. The novel asks readers to reflect on their own attitude towards the poor and marginalized. It challenges the readers to think about how they may contribute to, or perpetuate systems of inequality, and to consider how empathy and human dignity should be extended to everyone, regardless of their social status. The theme of human dignity is central in the Beggars strike. The beggars are not just protesting for money or material goods, they are demanding to be treated with respect and recognized as human beings, not as invincible or inferior members of the society. The Beggars strike challenges the societal perception of the poor as unworthy of dignity. By stopping their begging, they are asserting their humanity and demanding that others see them as equals. The novel urges that all individuals, regardless of their social status, deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. This theme highlights the importance of empathy and the need to recognize the worth of every person, regardless of their circumstances. Social inequality and class division. One of the central themes of the Beggars strike is the stark divide between the rich and the poor in society. The beggars in the story are marginalized, invincible, and treated with disdain by the wealthy class. Through the beggars' protest, the novel critiques the systemic social injustice that exists between the elite and the underprivileged. The beggar strike serves as a powerful metaphor for how the lower classes are often ignored or mistreated by those in power. The wealthy citizens who have the means to live comfortably are shown to be indifferent to the struggles of the poor. The beggars' protest forces the rich to confront their own ignorance and apathy towards the realities faced by the marginalized groups. The novel emphasizes the deep-rooted class divides and the exploitation of the poor by the privileged elites. Lastly, feminist struggle in Africa. Let's now discuss the role and significance of some of the major characters in the novel. Let's begin with Mour Ndiaye. The protagonist, Mour Ndiaye, after losing unemployment following a brawl with his European boss, whom he accused of treating Africans worse than dogs, got involved in politics, and when his party came into power, he was appointed Director of Public Health and Hygiene, in recognition for his unconditional activities as a party militant. This allowed him to attain fame and big man status, thus a wealthy man who has acquired social promotion, which is materialized by his physical appearance and the luxury he and his family enjoys. The position of power that Mour Ndiaye acquires makes him arrogant and uncompassionate toward the plight of the poor and underprivileged. Ironically, he has forgotten the time he was unemployed, when he could scarcely make both ends meet, when he went about hollow-cheeked and anxious-eyed, when he had only one shirt that he had to wash overnight and put to dry on the stove. Now that he is wealthy, Mour Ndiaye looks down upon the beggars, forgetting that hunger and poverty compel some of them to beg, and so remind those who are better off that paupers too exist. It is important to remember that Mour Ndiaye was appointed Director of the Department of Public Health and Hygiene, not on merit, but solely because of political reasons. Mour Ndiaye is obsessed with his ambition. He dreams of a nomination to the position of Vice President of the country. To gain the favor of the President, he embarks on the evacuation of the street beggars from the city center to the outskirts of the city, alleging that they are an oozing wound that is hurting the booming tourist industry. The narrator describes the beggars in the following words: "These beggars, these talibis, these lepers and cripples, all these derelicts, the dregs of society, associated with subhumans, these dregs of society, as Mour Ndiaye views them, must be removed from the metropolis and banished to the outskirts to make way for a booming tourist trade that will run the beautification of the city." Thus, Mour Ndiaye reminds his assistant, Keba Dabo, of the minister's order that the city be cleared of the beggars and urges him to take a more decisive action in this regard. For Ndiaye, such an action is necessary and urgent because, besides the fact that the beggars constitute a running sore which turns away tourists from the country, thereby threatening the national economy by depriving it of the much-needed foreign exchange earned from tourism, there is an additional responsibility. There is the added responsibility that we really can't let them invade our city and form a threat to public hygiene. For the outsider to be interested in visiting the capital, the beggars must be kept away from the public. They should not be visible to the outsiders. They are to be relocated to another place about 200 kilometers away. This is to make them invisible to the visitors or the whites. Mour Ndiaye explains to his Marabout, Kifi Kubol, the reason why the beggars must be removed from all the city streets. Well, you see, nowadays, people who live a long way away in Europe and the United States of America, white people especially, are beginning to take interest in the beauty of our country. These people are called tourists. You know, in the old days, these white people came to rob and exploit us. Now, they visit our country to rest and in search of happiness. That is why we have built hotels and holiday villages and casinos to welcome them. These tourists spend huge sums of money to come here. There are even special societies over in Europe who organize these journeys. And when they visit the cities, they are accosted by beggars, and we run the risk of their never coming back here or putting unfavorable propaganda to discourage others who might like to come. We are the ones who are responsible for the destiny of our country. We must oppose anything which harms our economic and tourist development. Finally, after several raids, Keba Dabo and his men succeeded in putting all the beggars permanently out of town. Mour Ndiaye was excited. The president congratulated him for a job well done. Mour Ndiaye was awarded Order of Merit, an honor which is reserved for nationalists who have shown quite exceptional qualities. He is awarded such a rare title for succeeding in breaking up the celebrated ring of beggars who deprived the state every year of hundreds of millions and who till then had constituted a national plague that no one had been able to eradicate. At this point, it is important to note that Mour Ndiaye is so far portrayed as ambitious, exploitative, corrupt, naughty, hypocritical, and selfish. Mour Ndiaye represents the exploiter of the underprivileged, for he uses the masses to achieve his ambition. In his eagerness to become vice president, he sacrifices the comfort of the beggars. Mour Ndiaye epitomizes those African leaders who, because of their selfish interests and insensitivity, do not think twice before taking decisions which affect the masses. The idea of welcoming white men to African societies remains an indisputable fact. Among the reasons for embarking on tourism is to have knowledge of other cultures and natural events. It could be a source of income as those visitors will engage in commercial activities in one way or the other. This is what many African leaders perceive as a way to increase their internally generated revenue. To achieve this, many policies by policymakers are to the detriment of the citizens. The beggars could no longer allow themselves to be sent to untimely grave. To avoid harassment, imprisonment, physical abuse, and unnecessary embarrassment, they decided to reserve themselves to the place cleared for them. As we see later, the rich with their wealth will visit these beggars in their area. They could not survive despite their argument against the presence of the beggars on the streets. This new area could be likened to the segregation that existed during the colonial era. Although Mour Ndiaye managed to rid the street of beggars, he was simply wrapped in his own arrogance and masculinity diaper without thinking through his plan. He ignores the boundaries of his powers as well as the obligation of the rich towards the poor as required by Islamic influenced society. Indeed, one of the 5 pillars of Islam is zakat, the giving of alms to the poor and the needy. According to the teaching of Islam, charity is an indispensable duty. Those who generously give to the poor, in this case the beggars, do so hoping to receive God's favor in return, as explained in the following statement by Nguirane, one of the beggars. The rich make offerings so that God may grant them long life, prosperity, and happiness. Mour Ndiaye, who religiously believes in the prescriptions of the Marabout Kifi Bukul, is determined to put everything in an effort of carrying them out to the latter in the hope of securing the post of the Vice President of the Republic. But the city has been cleansed of the beggars who had retreated to their new slum clearance resettlement area and who in turn have decided to go on strike as a protest against their inhuman treatment and the violation of their status as citizens with full rights like everyone else. As a result, Mour Ndiaye is unable to exercise the necessary sacrifice. The tables have turned completely, as the rich and important Mour Ndiaye is compelled to look for the beggars and travel to their new place. He wants the beggars to remain at their post in the city so that he can distribute the alms to them as prescribed by his Marabout. Having failed in this bid, Mour Ndiaye next goes to plead with his assistant, Keba Dabo, to go and invite the beggars back into the street to enable him to make a sacrificial offering as prescribed by his Marabout. And when Keba Dabo refuses to cooperate with him, Mour Ndiaye goes to the beggars himself to invite the beggars back into the street, even for a few hours. The beggars, to whom he had introduced himself as Mour Ndiaye, the director of the Department of Public Health and Hygiene, responsible for the evacuation, treat him with contempt as he addresses them. But he swallows it all and persists. In his next attempt, he makes 2 trips to the beggars' compound, simply dressed, as he thinks, to put the beggars at ease. But they refused and made jest of him. After a long oration, Salla, who controls the beggars, promises Mour Ndiaye by saying, "Mour Ndiaye, you can go. Tomorrow, if it pleases the Creator, all the beggars will be at their old posts." Mour Ndiaye rushes home to slaughter the bull. He cuts the flesh and packages them neatly, according to Kifikubu's precise instructions. He loads the meat and other items into the van, and like a lunatic, he wandered around the 4 corners of the city in search of the absent beggars. Not a soul at the main markets, no talibis, no beggars, no battles. Mour's heart begins to beat faster. Then, Mour feels a weight in his chest. He has difficulty in breathing. Mour Ndiaye has been tricked. He has been deceived by the beggars, especially Salla, who used a ruse as one way of getting rid of him. Mour Ndiaye is infuriated and begins to curse the beggars, the rougers, the hypocrites, the liars. That's the reason why they are reduced to begging. They have got what they deserve. They have taken me for a ride. They have deliberately deceived me. The woman lied to me shamelessly. They'll pay for it one day. I will get even with that ramble yet. For Mour Ndiaye to be vice president seems impossible, as the beggars are not on the street any longer. This is not limited to Mour Ndiaye alone. Many others visit the new location with different articles of arms. They do not consider the distance or the bad roads. Those that drove them away still trooped to the new location, very far and not too good for human habitation. The purpose of their visit was for their prayers to be answered. Mour Ndiaye returns to the settlement area. After some stifled conversation with the impertinent Salla, Mour Ndiaye dips his hand into the pocket of his bubu and held several words of banknotes at the beggars. They jump up and scramble for the banknotes. "That's for your bus fare, so you can go into the town and take your places in the streets. Can you?" he said. The beggars responded in unison, "Yes, yes, we'll come this afternoon." Yet they did not come. On Salla instruction, the beggars resolved to continue their strike. Conscious of their new power, the beggars remain totally indifferent as Mour Ndiaye pleads with them, but no one has moved. Mour Ndiaye, the big man, is utterly ignored and his gifts and money rejected despite his continued plea. The table has turned over. The beggars, who not long ago were treated like the dregs of society, have now become kings. It is now Mour Ndiaye who has to go to the beggars' settlement to beg them to return to the street for a while so he can make his prescribed sacrifice. The contented beggars refuse to cooperate with him, even after Mour Ndiaye has tried every method to get them onto the street, including begging and bribing them. With the beggars' continuous strike and their refusal to go onto the street, Mour Ndiaye cannot therefore offer his prescribed sacrifice and is professionally and psychologically destroyed. In a reversal of roles, Mour Ndiaye becomes a beggar, while the beggars become the privileged. The beggars have triumphed over their oppressor. That is, the person who was sacking the beggars is now begging the beggars to accept his alms. Placed with a position of entreating the beggars to return to the street, Mour Ndiaye is humiliated and ridiculed. He has been brought down low and made to somehow regain his sense of humanity. He is pushed to a physical and mental exhaustion. His family life suffers, And ultimately, he fails in his bid to the vice presidency. Instead, the president appoints Monsieur Toumani Sane, Mour Ndiaye's rival, as vice president of the republic. The reversal of power between the rich and the poor, the able and disabled, the well-connected and unconnected is complete. The strike has succeeded as the beggars have demonstrated their worth. It is evident from the above that Aminata Sow lays bare the vices and follies of Mour Ndiaye, and these are greed, selfishness, short-sightedness, lack of self-knowledge, callousness, lack of concern for the needs of others, hypocrisy, and above all, an overweening ambition. Let's now move to the next character, Lolli. Lolli is the wife of Mour Ndiaye. Lolli did everything she could in order to support her family, but all her hard work, dedication, and so many good qualities went unnoticed as her husband wakes her up at midnight to inform her that he will be getting married in the morning. As she says, 20 years of marriage, you were nothing, nothing but a miserable beggar. I backed you up. I put up everything patiently. I worked my fingers to the bone. Now, you want to share everything you have got with another woman? Thanks to my patience and my hard work, when you were nothing, who slaved away? Who wore herself a shadow to keep the home going on the smell of an oil rag? Where did all the money go that my father and brothers gave me because they were sorry for me? Into the packets of Marabouts to unlock the doors of better times for you. And where did all my boo-boos disappear to, leaving me with only one to my back that I wore month in month out, one solitary boo-boo that in the end couldn't be distinguished from my skin, so that people didn't say, that woman there, that's Lolli Badiani. In wind and rain and sun, always the same boo-boo, because the others had been sold, the same way my bracelets and my earrings, so that we could keep some semblance of decency in our lives and not let the children starve. Have you forgotten that already? Ungrateful wretch, a liar that you are. Although Lolli and her daughter Rabi oppose Mour Ndiaye's decision, he does not stop pursuing his desire, claiming that as a sole provider and head of the family, he can do whatever he wants. You hear Lolli, just think, after all, I'm the one who feeds you and keeps you, aren't I? And just tell me what contract I am tied by that prevents me from taking a second wife, if I so desire. From this quote, it can be said that Mour Ndiaye assumes that a woman cannot do, think, or say anything important, and that man's power, bestowed by Patriarchy and expressed in his role as the head of the family, has to be used to keep the woman in check, because otherwise she will abuse her freedom. Consequently, he expects his wife to be submissive and remain silent whenever he talks to her. After all, he sees himself as the supreme head of the household, and if his wife fails to comply, she must pay for her insubordination. From the aforementioned, it is interesting to note that polygamy has become a barometer for masculinity. The more wives a man has, the more he proves his courage, physical strength, and sexual potency. For Mour Ndiaye, a man who is experiencing a midlife crisis, polygamy is a way to upgrade his public standing as a virile man. At this point, it is to be noted that Mour Ndiaye is really selfish, ungrateful, manipulative, and a callous exploiter. Mour Ndiaye has reached his present professional position by virtually climbing the ladder that is his wife. She has always been faithful, patient, and helpful to him, and hopes that Mour Ndiaye becomes vice president. She consults Marabouts on behalf of her husband to ensure that he achieves his ambition. During his darkest hours, she stood firmly by him. Now that the family is prosperous and she is just about to settle down and enjoy the fruits of her faithfulness and hard work, Mour Ndiaye, having exploited her enough, virtually discards her and marries a young office secretary, Sine. As Mour Ndiaye sees it, the power relation between him and his wife is based on economic factors. knowing that he is a sole provider on whom Lolli now depends. Mour Ndiaye feels that he has the right to do whatever he wants and she cannot resist his will. To assert his worth, masculine force and authority, Mour Ndiaye moves in with Sine. Let's now move to the character of Keba Dabo. He is the assistant of Mour Ndiaye. He has worked with him for the past 6 years. He is the brain of his department. He is the one holding everything together for his boss, covering up for his boss's incompetence. But his boss takes the credit for the works that he does for the department. In reality, it is he, Keba Dabo, who is actually managing the affairs of the department and not his boss. He is equally against begging as a profession or commodifying one's problem for economic gains. He is very much aware of the fact that Islam religion encourages helping others. It discourages begging as a profession. He views begging as an act that eliminates a person's honor and self-esteem. Keba Dabo is one who was brought up by a single parent who could have succumbed to begging due to a condition, but she forced and instilled in her son's independence and the need to work, for begging encourages laziness. Begging as a profession impairs humans' honor and virtues, shatters personality, and leads to exploitation of benevolent people's pure feeling. Despite the fact that Islam encourages the rich to give to the needy, it discourages people from begging. It is also said in the novel that religion prescribes help for the poor, but it does not tell the poor to cause continuous disturbance to their neighbors. To accomplish this task, Mour Ndiaye relies on his assistant, Keba Dabo, who shares his own disdain for the beggars and begging in general. Keba Dabo's upbringing in an impoverished family, where his mother refused to resort to begging, has instilled in him a strong sense of self-reliance and honesty, and restored dignity to those who have been reduced to it. Keba Dabo's relentless pursuit of the beggars in Dakar, Senegal, is a pivotal aspect of Aminata Sow's novel, The Beggars Strike. Keba, driven by his disdain for beggars, wages a series of battles against them, only to see them return each day. His determination to eradicate them led him to instruct his squad to track them down, emphasizing the severity of the issue. The government's stance on the beggars is clear. They are viewed as a nuisance, a plague that must be eliminated. Persistent offenders will be given a good lesson and put on track for Mbanda, thus 200 miles away, a village where there's practically no means of transport. So, how will they manage to get back here? If they come back, they will be put in prison. Yes, indeed, they will land up in prison. Keba did not tell Mour Ndiaye his feeling every time a beggar held out his hand to him. He did not tell him how he nearly choked when filthy hands were poked right into his car as soon as he was imprudent enough to lower the window, nor the remorse he felt when he conformed to the principle he had laid down never to give alms to beggars, a principle that was not inspired by meanness or churlishness, but simply because he was shocked to see human beings, however poor they might be, diminishing their own dignity by sponging on others in such a disgraceful, shameless fashion. He forgot that hunger and poverty compelled some of them to beg, and so remind those who were better off that paupers too existed. He is conscientious, honest, and a veritable glutton for work. In 6 years that he has worked under Mour Ndiaye, Keba had never taken a day off without good reason, never asked to borrow a single penny on the pretext that he couldn't make ends meet in these difficult times, or that he couldn't see his way through the end of the month. For all these reasons, Mour Ndiaye thought highly of Keba Dabo, who was in fact the brain of the service. Mour Ndiaye, who has been appointed to this post for political reasons, a form of recognition from the government for his past unconditional activity as a militant in the party. He is well aware of this, but nevertheless made it a point of honor to deserve the rewards that he received. So he shifted all the responsibility on Keba Dabo, whom he knew to be competent. The main thing for him was that things should be done properly, so that he could get the credit for them. He was only interested in more titles, more honors, and for this end, he systematically made use of Keba Dabo's capacity, being a methodical man with a clear idea of his goal. Keba Dabo refuses to allow his boss to use him for his personal gains. Mour Ndiaye asks Keba Dabo to help him, asking him to persuade the beggars to return to the street. However, Keba Dabo is appalled by the idea and refuses to get involved. Yes, yes, but Keba, I must tell you, I need these beggars today. I need them. I've got to distribute a sacrifice among them. I need them to go back to their vantage points for a day, for one day only. It wouldn't even be for a day, only a few hours. Yes, for a very personal reason. I would like you to go and see them with a few members of the former clearance squad to give them confidence and persuade them to come back to the street for a few hours. Tell them they risk nothing, absolutely nothing. Finally, Keba raised his head and, prompted by some violent emotion, stared at his chief and cried passionately, "No, who do you take me for? It's madness what you are saying. I've hunted down these beggars. I've destroyed them physically and morally. And finally, they leave us in peace. And now, you want me to go and tell them to come back?" With this, Mour Ndiaye regrets making Keba his assistant. Let's now move to the character of Salla. The beggars were guided by a woman called Salla, who serves like a mother figure to them all. They have confidence in Salla. They know she's a woman of experience. She has had plenty of opportunity of getting to know the world. Being orphaned quite young, she had to learn to make her own way in life very early. Her former job as maid of all work gave her the chance to get to know people, to learn their most intimate secret, and to judge the idiosyncrasy of the rich as well as the poor, for she had swept sumptuous villas with their soft mattresses, as well as sordid hovels in which at nightfall there were quarrels over torn pallets whose straws swarmed with bedbugs. The school of life is probably the best school. You see everything, you get hardened by everything. Salla, the leader of the beggars, delivers a long sarcastic oration, pretending to agree to Mour Ndiaye's request. She promised that the beggars will return to their old posts the next day, but it is clear that she has no intention of keeping her words. After Mour Ndiaye reveals his identity to the beggars, Salla decides to play tricks on his mind. She agreed that they will avail themselves to receive the offering the next morning. Mour Ndiaye, however, is oblivious of the beggar's deception. He rushes home, slaughters the bull, and carefully packages the meat according to Kifi Kubul's instructions. He loads the meat and the other offerings into a van and sets off to distribute them to the beggars. But when he arrives at their usual begging spot, he is met with empty streets. The beggars are nowhere to be found, and Mour Ndiaye realizes that he has been tricked. His anger and frustration boils over as he realizes that Salla and the other beggars have outsmarted him. Mour Ndiaye's desperation grows as he returns to the resettlement, attempting to bribe the beggars with wads of banknotes to return to the streets. However, the beggars, led by the cunning Salla, are resolute in their strike, and Mour Ndiaye's plan backfires. Despite their initial promise to return, the beggars retain in the resettlement area, leaving Mour Ndiaye's ambition in tatters. Mour Ndiaye says, "Sister, I came to see what had held the lads up. They promised to be back at their old post." Salla looked up at Mour Ndiaye. "What held them up? I don't know. Ask them yourself. They aren't children, and I'm not their mother." Mour Ndiaye is astonished at Salla's aggressive tone. He makes an effort not to show his feeling. In a conciliatory voice, a smile on his lips, he says to Salla, "What you say is true." Later on, Mour Ndiaye dips his hand into the pocket of his bubu, brings out wads of banknotes, which he held towards the beggars. The majority of the crowd immediately jump up to seize the note as they flutter in the wind. They jostle each other shouting, "Money is flying about! Money is flying about!" Mour Ndiaye replies by saying, "That's for your bus fare, so you can go into town and take up your places in the street, can't you?" Yes, we'll come this afternoon. Yet they did not come. is raining banknotes. Mour Ndiaye is pleased to see Salla in the midst of the scrum. That's a good sign, he thinks, to placate her and to make her better disposed to him. Mour Ndiaye throws a whole word in her direction so that she can easily catch a good share. Salla, in the scrabble for the money, lost her headscarf in the scuffle. Mour Ndiaye interprets a broad smile as an undoubted victory for him. He is jubilant. It is now he thinks that he has managed to break down the wall that separated him from the beggars. However, when he went back to the city, on Salla instruction, the beggars are continuing their strike. Through her resilience and determination, the beggar strike was successful and Mour Ndiaye's wish was aborted. Let's now discuss the character of Nguirane. The blind Nguirane, always correctly dressed with his tie, starch collar, dark gold-rimmed glasses, inveritable naval blue suit, and white stick, Nguirane has a somewhat distinguished air, perhaps because he always holds his head high and bends slightly to the left. His vantage point is the runabout near the presidential palace, where he regularly receives a coin, to which is associated a wish from everyone who is about to obtain an audience with the President of the Republic. Charity opens doors. So, here goes a final coin to open the door of the President's heart. He plays a pivotal role in the beggar strike, though he is blind. When the city officials started to harass the beggars, he was the first to demand for their dignity as humans. He was beaten mercilessly by the police. They laid into me today. They tore my clothes, confiscated my stick and broke my glasses. It's too much. It's too much. Is that a way to treat a human being? Nguirane at the end of his tether, blood oozing from a cut over his right eye that stretched down his ear. They are quite vicious. When they start laying about them in a fury, they are worse than mad dogs. It's too much. It's too much. Nguirane goes on. Since they want war, let it be war. We are not dogs. Nguirane continues. We are not dogs. Now, his voice is shrill with anger and distress, and it pierces the thin maze of lightly veils that a last glimmer of twilight in the air that smells of burning wood. We know perfectly well we are not dogs, and they've got to be convinced of this too. So we must get organized. He is very much aware of the religious implication of begging or almsgiving, especially in an Islamic community. Listen, we can perfectly well get organized. Even these madmen, these heartless brutes who descend on us and beat us up, even they give to charity. They need to give alms because they need our prayers. That is, wishes for long life, for prosperity, for pilgrimages. They like to hear them every morning to drive away their bad dreams of the night before and to maintain their hopes that things will be better tomorrow. You think that people give out of the goodness of their heart? Not at all. They give out of an instinct of self-preservation. With his wisdom and support, Salla and the beggars declared a strike. He was wise enough to ask for the identity of the man who assured them of their safety should they return to the street to beg. It was revealed that the same person who has wiped them off the street is begging them to come to the street for his own selfish gains. This hardened the hearts of the beggars to stand on their grounds, while the other beggars tricked Mour Ndiaye by picking the money he was throwing at them to come back on the street at their vantage points. Nguirane wanted nothing to do with his money, not even faking likeness to take the money. In the end, the beggar strike is a battle hard won, thanks to Nguirane. Let's now discuss the character of Sine. Due to his privileged position and the prospect of being appointed as a vice president, Mour Ndiaye decides to marry Sine, a 17-year-old girl who works as a secretary in a travel agency, as his second wife. We learn about how they met in the following excerpts. Mour met her at a hotel in a neighboring country, which he had visited with his minister. He had been attracted to her spontaneity, her youth, and especially by the ease with which she expressed herself in the official language, which is French, with which Mour himself had some difficulties. She was very elegant and very modern. From the above quotation, it can be seen that there is a big discrepancy between Mour and Sine in both age and education, which, as we will later see, will cause a misunderstanding. Thus, their generational differences will be the cause of their numerous disagreements. It is also because of his selfish exploitative nature that he marries Sine, and not necessarily because he loves her. He believes that he is going to be appointed vice president soon, but before he gets the vice presidency, he must have an educated wife to compensate his first wife, Lolli, who by Western standards is uneducated. Sine qualifies to be the second wife because she is young, fluent in French, and sophisticated. Therefore, Mour Ndiaye marries her not because he loves her, but simply because it is necessary if she is to remain as a wife. And since she is important in his game plan, he obliges her. Mour Ndiaye buys Sine a luxurious villa and spends most of his money and time with her while neglecting his family. This is ironic because he claims to be the head of the family and is the main provider, yet abandons his family completely. Mour Ndiaye is unable to fulfill his expected traditional roles. Unlike Lolli, Sine is educated, enlightened, and highly sophisticated. She rejects submission and asserts her independence and right to continue to exhibit her premarital lifestyle and habits, such as smoking, wearing trousers, and makeups. She also rejects being given orders and prohibitions. Indeed, as the narrative reveals, Sine cannot let Mour Ndiaye muzzle her, neither trample on her human rights. Thus, she tells him, "Mour, if you think I'm prepared to be stuck here like a piece of furniture and receive your orders and prohibitions, then you're making a mistake. I'm a person and not a block of wood. You are taking leave of your senses. What are you thinking about? That I am here just to satisfy your whims? No, I'm your wife, so treat me like a wife. Really, Mour, if you think I'm going to let you treat me like a common or garden object, then you have got another thing coming. We don't talk the same language. We shall never talk the same language." Inasmuch as the narrator doesn't make any comment that suggests she supports or disapproves of Sine's laziness, smoking, wearing of trousers and lipstick, it is clear, however, that Sine challenges patriarchal tradition. As an educated, enlightened, and modern woman, she refuses to submit to Mour Ndiaye's control or to put up with a behavior which her co-wife accepts. As with the woman of her mother's generation, it is worth mentioning that through Sine, Aminata Sow gives women their share of justice. She portrays them as having the upper hand in an environment where they are not likely to amount to anything. This is the reason why, in a heated argument with Mour Ndiaye over Sine's smoking habit, the latter does not miss a chance to remind him, "You are like someone from the Middle Age, and besides, if you stop to think, that's how you found me when you married me. Now you want me to change simply because I've become your wife? It's not logical. You ought to be able to put up with me just as you found me." While Mour Ndiaye is able to exercise his masculine power and privileges with his traditional and submissive first wife, Lolli, he cannot do the same with Sine because she will not allow it. A close look at Sine reveals her force. She is empowered and seems to gather strength to speak up for herself. Her ideas, actions, and attitudes challenge one of the foundation stones of hegemonic masculinity. She rejects the subjugation of women by men in all spheres of life. Sine's resistance to her husband's control is a transgressive act. It compels Mour Ndiaye to realize that he has to blame no one but himself. He rationalizes the problem in terms of age difference. As the narrator reveals, Mour came to the conclusion that their misunderstanding arose from the great discrepancies in age between them, and because he was older than Sine, it was his duty to make certain concessions and grant Sine her wishes rather than imposing his authority, as this was detrimental to his respectability. As a staunch supporter of polygamy and male chauvinism, Mour Ndiaye picks a younger and educated second wife, Sine, in the hope to raise his masculine power status. He forbids Sine to smoke, wear trousers and makeups. Nevertheless, Mour Ndiaye eventually loses the battle of wits and willpower, as Sine is not prepared to submit to his patriarchal control. Through Sine, Aminata so far has changed the myth of male supremacy on one hand and female inferiority on the other hand. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share this video.